Hey, everybody, it's John Moore here with the Texas College Football Show. And on again to help me out is Steve Helwick. Steve, remind everybody where you are. We're gonna look at the Houston Cougars today, Big 12 Houston Cougars. Go over what we did with the Rice Owls, where Steve helped me. He covers Houston sports in the area of Houston and Rice in the city of Houston. Tell us exactly what you do again, Steve.
Yes, I cover the Houston Cougars and Rice Owls and more for SB Nation. I've been doing it since 2019 for both of those programs. Been living in this area for a while, so yeah, I've been at both of their practices pretty recently, and I cover most of their games on game days. Sometimes travel to some of their road spots too. Did Houston at Arizona last year, Rice at Tulane, Rice at Memphis, Houston at Oklahoma. So good seeing Houston and Rice both home and on the road. And just for a programmer's note, I am just currently laying down because I had surgery and cannot move right now. So
he's a gamer. He has done this for me twice now, and he's had to lay back and do that with the injury because he got out like I can't do and tried to get some basketball going. Were you probably going for a dunk? What were you doing? Did someone bust you under the boards?
I wasn't going for a dunk, which I feel like that's a type of play that it would happen, but it was just a standard inbounds pass. I was just cutting in front of a defender. He steps on my right foot. I overplant with my left foot, and then I knew I was out for the season as soon as it happened. But my goal is to be able to dunk again as soon as this injury subsides.
You got to get healthy. You're still young. You got to get out there. You'll rehab, get back out there and go. Now let's get into the Houston Cougars and what we see Houston doing this year. Of course, we're going to get into the coach. And for guys that don't know what the rankings are here, I already had a show out ranking the 13 coaches in Texas FBS football. Let me explain what this show is for you Houston fans that don't know. Texas College Football Show is I cover all Texas FBS schools that are technically eligible to win a national championship at the highest level. Houston is in the Big 12 this year, which I am pulling for Big 12 schools. I'm pulling for the Texas schools to have a chance. Hey, don't sleep on Houston. Houston is not, I mean, look, I know that they're not picked to do much in the Big 12, but they're not picked to be the worst team in the Big 12 either. Their coach is Willie Fritz. I had him as the number 6 coach, more out of not what he did last year. We'll talk about what they did last year, but Willie has quite a resume. He's been coaching for 32 years. I think he's been coaching. He's 54-47. He's had 3 AAC titles in 8 years. He started at Blinn Junior College, Central Missouri, Sam Houston, Georgia Southern. He was in Tulane before coming to Houston. This is his second year in Houston. Last year he went 4-8. What do you say about Willie Fritz? And you've got to know him. What's he like?
Oh, Willie Fritz, I mean, he gets a lot of respect of the players and coaches right away. A lot of players even stayed at Houston after Dana Holgorsen was fired because they bought into the culture from Willie Fritz. And he's turned around programs pretty well throughout his career. Before he got to Tulane, Tulane wasn't really doing too much in the 21st century, a lot of 4-8, 3-9 seasons. And by the time he leaves, Tulane's expectation is to compete for a conference title every year. And you still see that culture at Tulane to this day. So he built them up and he's kept them even at that level. So he tries to do the same thing for Houston. Houston's had a kind of a rough transition to the Big 12 after a pair of 4-8 seasons. They've had a few good wins over the years. They beat a ranked Kansas State team last year. They beat Utah, although Utah was a bit disappointing to end last year, finished 5-7. They beat West Virginia, a good West Virginia team in 2023. So Houston's had some wins over the year, but they just need to get more consistent because they have too many games where they get shut out. Their offense has struggled. And that's what I think that Willie Fritz really made his mission in year 2 is to build an offense, got a new offensive coordinator this year, got a new quarterback. And I think that's what the main focus is on year 2 of Willie Fritz is building an offense and getting this thing really rolling in Houston because his recruiting so far has been excellent. He's really won this area over so far.
Yeah, and I tell you what, we're going to talk about his quarterback here in a little bit because I have some hot opinions on this, and I'm really excited for this also. Let's look at the coaches seat chart that we did. We do this for everybody. It's obviously it's 4 tiers. The hot seat. There's only one coach I had on a hot seat. It is not Willie Fritz. Put up or else. I've had 2 on a warm seat. It's also not Willie Fritz. You may not be quite on the hot seat yet, but there are some grumblings on the cool seat. It's basically you're okay, but Willie Fritz isn't there either. I've got Willie Fritz on the cold seat. He's only in his second season at Houston. He's got the skins on the wall to say he's pretty safe where he's at right now. And I would tend to think you might agree with me there.
I absolutely agree. I mean, Willie Fritz didn't exactly inherit a powerhouse program. He inherited a team that was still transitioning from the American to the Big 12, lacked a lot of depth. He also inherited a team without a lot of its star talent because the year before they had Clayton Tune and Tank Dell. They had a really good offense that was expected to compete for a New Year's Six Bowl in Dana Holgerson's penultimate season in 2022. That would have been the year before they transitioned to the Big 12. And then after that, I mean, Houston lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal, lost a lot of their stars. So I think that he's trying to build this thing back up right now. So I think Houston should only get better from 2024 to this year. A lot of people are projecting it. Last year, you saw in all the people's Big 12 preseason rankings, you saw them 15, 16. This year, you're seeing them sometimes around 10, 11, 12. I think people believe that Houston's defense is already in place. If Connor Wegman, offensive coordinator Slade Nagel, and that new offense can make a step up, then Houston maybe they could be the next Arizona State is their best case scenario.
Yeah, and let's look at what happened last year. And this was Willie's first year. They were 4-8 overall. They were 3-6 in the Big 12. Notable games, obviously the win over Rice, where they kind of manhandled Rice. They beat a TCU team that was just 2 years removed from playing for a national championship, and the big win at Kansas State. Any other notables? You just kind of mentioned a couple from last season. Anything else?
Their only other win was over Utah, which was on a game-winning field goal by Jack Martin. That game was fueled by some convenient takeaways late in the game. Their defense kept them in so many games last year. Another notable game, I would say, actually the first two games I think were very telling of the season. There was that UNLV game where they lost 27-7 in the opener, and you realized how limited the offense was going to be for the rest of the season, that the offensive line was struggling. They couldn't really get any slow developing plays. They didn't have time for routes to develop. UNLV manhandled them, and I thought it felt even worse than 27-7 at the time. Houston scored with like a minute and 10 seconds left, or else it would have been a shutout. But then the week 2 game, I thought, against Oklahoma last year was also very telling, because that's when you learn that Houston's defense was also elite, because Oklahoma won that game 16-12, and Houston had, I think, 4 possessions where they could have won the game at the end, because the defense kept giving them so many opportunities, but the offense just couldn't get it done. So at that point, you realize Houston's defense can compete with anybody, that the offense can't. Yeah. So that was the theme of the season. They won games mainly because of timely takeaways, just great defensive play, good field position. And if they could get the one breakout run on offense, like they did against TCU, like they did against Kansas State, that was what won them games.
Yeah, and speaking of offense, we're going to get into the offense, and there's only one position I ever put a slide up here for, and that's always the quarterback, because I don't care who you are. On any team, your quarterback drives that bus on the offense, and I rank them from 13 all the way down to 1. And I got to be honest with you, it's the only transfer we're going to talk about before we have the transfer question after we go offense and defense. And that's because Connor Weigman was my number 4 quarterback, 13 down to 1. I like Connor Weigman. It's fun to make fun of Aggies and do all of that. I think there was a disservice done to him over at Texas A&M, in my opinion. He had some flashes of greatness while he was playing there. He also had some not so flashes of greatness, and that's fine. That happens for any young quarterback learning the position. This is a 5-star recruit. He's home. He's in a new offense where everyone's excited about him being there. I saw enough of Connor Weigman. And by the way, let me be fair on how I'm doing this. Now, I'm a UT fan. I did not have Arch Manning number 1 like everybody in the world thinks Arch Manning is. He has not played enough. In fact, I had him 3rd on my list. I had Kevin Jennings from SMU, and I had Marcel Reed from A&M. Both 2 guys that have started and played a lot, they have skins on the wall. Is Arch better than them? I think he could be, but he hasn't done it yet, right? He's played 2 games. Connor Weigman's another guy I'm very high on. Him and Arch may end up being 1 and 2 by the time this is over. What are your thoughts on Weigman? Have you been to practice to watch him some? How does he look? I'm just excited to see Weigman at Houston.
Yeah, Connor Weigman, he's had a pretty good offseason. And one thing that's really important is he's healthy.
Yep.
He was not healthy a lot of his time at Texas A&M, playing
Right.
through various ailments and injuries, and that's one thing where he says he feels as close to 100% as he's felt in college, or at least since his first year at Texas A&M in 2022, which that's huge for him. And I mean, in 2022, when he was first onboarding, he had that touchdown. He had that season with 8 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Kept Texas A&M alive down the stretch. Won that game against LSU on Senior Day in 2022, which was a huge win. And then in 2023, he just gets hurt in September. He had some good games early on that year, but he faced a season-ending injury in September and never returned. And then last year, when Marcel Reed came in to as a rushing quarterback in that LSU game, that really just changed the dynamic of quarterback, and Reed held down the fort for the rest of the season there. Weigman wasn't great. He wasn't like terrible, I thought, in his time last year. He was really good in that Mizzou game, but
Yes.
he was also playing through some injuries last year. But I think this is a good fresh start for the Cypress native. He's pretty close to his hometown, and I think this is an offense that's going to suit him well. And when you watch him in practice, there's just a different zip he throws on the ball that
It's
you
a
just
5-star.
You notice, you see it when you watch him play. So I think that this is a really good change of scenery, and he might have needed it more than any other recent 5-star recruit quarterback, because I think that he can really built to thrive in this Houston offense. And I think Houston's receiving core can be decent. Guys like Boogie Johnson, Mekhi Muse this year are leading that charge there. But I think the biggest thing that Connor Weigman gets that Houston's quarterbacks didn't get last year is a brand new offensive line. Houston could start as many as 5 new transfers on that offensive line. I'm sure we'll get into that talking transfers later.
Yep.
But last year, Houston's quarterback simply didn't have time. So this
Okay.
year, if you have a healthy Weigman, who's an upgrade at quarterback, plus an offensive line that can provide better support than last year, then Houston's offense is already in a better shape than it was last year, because I think only Kent State, which finished 0-12, averaged fewer points per game than Houston in 2024. So definite upgrades need to be on that side, and I think they're already in place.
Yeah, and it starts at the head of that snake, and that's the quarterback. And I think they got a good one. And let me be very clear on what my disservice I think. I think that when Texas A&M, when Weigman was a true freshman, Texas A&M lost to Appalachian State, like the second game of the season or whatever. They had come back from COVID year or whatever, and they really were thinking that this was going to be a national championship year. It was obvious then they weren't. They weren't going to be a national champion. And I thought right then and there, you know what? You got a 5-star recruit on your team. You put him out there. He's going to have lumps. He's going to make rookie freshman mistakes, but that's a guy going into his sophomore year that will have, 8 games under his belt. He will have had the speed. He would have done all of that, because you saw how good he was by the time they turned it over to him. And he, like you said, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions when he ended that season. He could have come into that next year really firing after 6, 7, 8 games that he played. That was my personal opinion. It's like, if you're not going to win a national championship, you got a 5-star quarterback sitting there on the sideline. Get him out there to take his lumps now in the season when you know you're probably not going to be there and you can get it there. That's what I thought. Injuries, of course, were the biggest derailment for him. It was sad to see that. And I think when he came back last year, he played against a great defense in Notre Dame, and it was just hard to get going on that. And of course, when, like you said, when Marcel came in and spelled him, and then all of a sudden, everyone in one week, everybody wants Connor. The next week, they all want Marcel. Then he did good against LSU, and it was a good change for him. But I think I still believe in this guy as a 5-star recruit. There's a reason he was a 5-star recruit, and I don't think he was a bust as a 5-star recruit. I just think he didn't have the opportunity. And boy, Houston has got a good one here. Now let's go back to the offense again. So around him, I don't want to talk about your transfers yet. Coming back impact players, guys that were there last year, maybe guys that weren't starters but are going to be starters or get a lot of time. Who's coming back on that offense?
Most of the guys on this offense that you'll see starting around him will be transfers. Guys that are coming back, I would say wide receivers Boogie Johnson and Mekhi Muse are 2 names to watch. Boogie Johnson, he was known for catching that Hail Mary against West Virginia in 2023 and Dana Holgerson era. But Boogie Johnson last year, he rose to become the top receiver on the roster, team highs with 32 receptions and 402 yards. So he's going to be the top option this year, especially with Joseph Manjack, the 4th, transferring to TCU. And then their other top returning receiver, Mekhi Muse, he finished 2nd on the team in receptions last year. he's a pretty electric punt returner. He's one of those guys that they like to give screen passes to. He likes to work in open space with a ball, just a shifty guy. I mean, you can see the punt returner in him. He had one punt return touchdown last year. He would have had a few more. I think two were called back, one in the Arizona game, and then there was one in the UNLV game. So he could have had a few more punt return touchdowns, but he's just a talented playmaker in space. So I think those are two guys that you would need to watch on this offense. And then some of the running backs returned from last year: Stacey Sneed, Jamarian Burnett, and Rashawn Sanford. So I think you can see a big running back rotation without really a lead back. Willie Fritz always used those lead backs like Mekhi Hughes, Tyjae Spears at Tulane, but there's just so much talent in this room that I feel like the carries will be pretty evenly distributed.
Yeah,
throughout.
and let me tell you what, establishing any sort of running game is going to help any quarterback if he can get any sort of a running game going. We're going to get into those transfers in a minute because that offensive line is obviously upgraded, and even some receivers, I think you said. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, which you said was good last year, really showed some promise last year. Who's coming back on that defense besides transfers? Who are the guys coming back that are going to be impactful?
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, Sheil Wood, the defensive coordinator, is not coming back, so they're going to start new with Austin Armstrong from Florida. But still, they're going to run similar concepts to what they did last year, and they're going to be pretty multiple up front. And Houston last year had an incredible secondary. One of the guys that really fueled it was Latrell McCutcheon, very lengthy cornerback, has very good wingspan, tall for cornerback position, and McCutcheon's going to be one of those guys that I feel like is one of the leaders of the defense. Had 37 tackles, 3 pass pickups last year, and even what didn't show in the stat sheet, locked down his coverage where they weren't even throwing to his side. So I think Latrell McCutcheon, he has potential to be an all Big 12 corner. Previous stops at Oklahoma, USC, had to take a year off due to eligibility before when the one-time transfer rule was in place. But last year he returned to the field. He looked excellent. Another name I would look at is Carlos Allen. He's a defensive end, defensive tackle hybrid. You can line him up multiple positions on the defensive line. He was really one of the breakout players last year, 43 tackles. He had 2 fumble recoveries, 4 tackles for loss. I thought Carlos Allen was somebody that really made a big leap last year. And with Keith Cooper Jr. leaving the defensive line, he's currently on the Detroit Lions, and Carlos Allen's a leader of that front unit, someone that's really going to bring some of the pressure up front.
Yeah, and that sounds good. And I'll tell you what, when you're a cornerback and not many people know your name, that's usually a good thing because that means that nobody's throwing your way because you've got your guy covered a lot. Now, you get your name called when you're picking, making some picks or whatever. But that I'm okay. So I'm excited to see some of that. Sounds like the defensive side was a little further along last year than the offensive side. Let's get into the transfer portal. And you said what's really going to make a difference here in the transfer portal? Offensive line, 5 new starters coming in. Is that what you said? 5 are coming in, and these are some big boys?
Willie Fritz told me on Sunday that he has not finalized the offensive line depth yet, but I could see a scenario where you have 5 starters: Alvin Ebasele, Jason Brooks Jr., Mackenzie Agnello, Matthew Wyckoff, and Dalton Merriman manning the offensive line. So it wouldn't shock me if they just started anew on the offensive line with 5 fresh guys, because I've seen those 5 work together, and I think that could be a lineup that we might see from day one, and that would be huge to have anything different from last year.
Yeah. And who else is coming in impactful that from the transfer portal?
Yes, there's a lot of faces. Dean Connors is a running back that came from Rice. I think he was either first or second last year in receptions among running backs. So he's a running back that you can line up at the receiver position. He works well out of the backfield. One of the fastest guys on the team, I think, Dean Connors. He was granted an extra eligibility due to the Diego Pavia rolling, taking full advantage of that across town on the other side of the Bayou Bucket. I think he could be a big piece in that running back rotation. And another late addition that they had in April was Tanner Koziol. He is a tight end from Ball State. He ranked 6th in the FBS last year with 94 receptions. Would have led all tight ends except Harold Fannin Jr. and Bowling Green had the best statistical tight end season in college football history. So Koziol wasn't even first team All-MAC because of that. But he's going to be, 94 receptions for a tight end's crazy. So Houston now has a huge upgrade at tight end with Tanner Koziol. Then Amari Thomas and Harvey Broussard are some of the receivers that they bring in to replace guys like Joseph Manjack. So Amari Thomas, he's coming from UAB, and then Harvey Broussard comes from Louisiana, and those are some other guys that will help Boogie Johnson and Mekhi Muse in that receiving game.
All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Any transfers that are going to be impactful coming into this year?
They got Jesus Machado from Tulane, who had a devastating injury at the very beginning of last season. So, I mean, there's two Tulane guys that are coming in, Machado and Corey Platt. Corey Platt didn't play last year, so he's still kind of a transfer. But those are guys that could ramp up maybe their availability in this coming month and be instant impacts in the linebacker position. Because I would have to say that linebacker is a position that has the biggest question mark on Houston's defense for the time being. So those two lane transfers that played under Willie Fritz in New Orleans could be pretty big impact players there. And then also you have to look at the secondary because the late spring transfer portal window, Houston had AJ Halsey go to LSU, and then they lost Jeremiah Wilson to Florida State. Both of those guys had at least 4, 5, maybe 6 interceptions last year. They were top 2 in interceptions, and they lose these guys after the spring game. So they had to do some replacing in the spring transfer window. They got Rook Brown, a nickelback from Wyoming, and Rook Brown's getting a lot of first-team reps in practice. And then there's Blake Thompson, who was a starter at Louisiana Tech. I think he might have been All-Conference USA there, had 59 tackles last year, pair of forced fumbles. He's a pretty good disruptive strong safety that I could see competing for a starting role out of the gate.
Okay, any impactful recruits coming in that might hit the field? There? I mean, I don't know if they've gotten any. I mean, how long has it been since they've had a 5-star? They had that defensive tackle or defensive end that was a 5-star a few years back. But yeah, any impactful freshmen coming in?
Not this year, but next year they have. I think he's ranked the number 2 quarterback in the country, maybe number 1. Keyshawn Henderson.
Yes.
In 2026, that's going to be a big name there. I don't know if any true freshmen are going to get a lot of. I can't see like a lot of impact minutes right away. I would say a redshirt freshman that I'd look at is wide receiver Kobe Young, who didn't play too much last year. That's really rising his reps, and I think he could be one of the starting wide receivers in this core here.
Okay, well, let's get into the schedule. Of course, I blacked it out before we do my prediction of what the schedule will be. We'll do a worst case and a best case scenario. Let's start about. They're going to start it out on August the 28th against Stephen F. Austin there. Going through this, tell me the games that you see to highlight on the schedule that are going to be big ones. Obviously, the Rice game, we talked about that when we did the Rice show. What are some games on here that we should keep an eye on?
One, I would say that Friday night game against Colorado in week 3. Colorado is not expected to be as good as last year. I mean, they had the Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter and more leaving the program. But here's why I think that's a big game. Houston, in all likelihood, starts 2-0 with the schedule, which is a huge upgrade because they were 0-2 last year. I think this is the tone setter. Week 3, this is your Big 12 opener, Friday night, home game. People love watching Colorado, whether it's you like supporting them or hate watching them. People are attracted to Deion Sanders' Colorado team. So right. I think there's going to be packed crowd, huge audience. This is Houston's time to make a statement. And we've seen teams that just get better in the year when they get confidence. I think one of those teams is 2022 TCU. The second TCU beat Oklahoma that year, they just looked like a different team. And then when they had that huge comeback against Kansas State in October, they just looked like a better team throughout the season. In that huge, like dominant win over Iowa State. Need that win in your Big 12 opener against Colorado, and that can open up their 4-0 start with Oregon, and then that can set the. I think they're not here with an FCS in Oregon State. Other games Texas Tech. They haven't played Texas Tech in TD-ECU Stadium in a long time. I feel like the last time Texas Tech came to Houston in 2021, that happened in the Houston Texans Stadium at NRG Stadium. So having Texas Tech back in your home stadium, that's going to be a big one, especially with Texas Tech's $1 million defense that they got from NIL this year. I mean, Texas Tech just recruited their butts off in the portal. So that's going to be a big game. Kind of an in-state rivalry. The two have a lot of history recently with some close thrillers. You think back to 2022 and that multi-overtime thriller where Texas Tech pulled off the upset and stormed the field in Lubbock. Other games I would point to, October 25th at Arizona State. Those are the champs. Houston wants to be the Arizona State this year. Nobody saw them making the playoff in 2024.
Exactly.
I mean, they were coming off a few 3-9 seasons in a row. They were voted 16th in the preseason media poll. No one saw that coming, and Houston could have something similar this year in their best case scenario. So I think Houston can go in and beat the team that they're kind of trying to model themselves after. That would be an interesting one. And then just those last two games, TCU and Baylor, there is a lot of quarterback and receiver talent at those schools.
Yep.
Josh Hoover, Sawyer Robertson, I think two of the top quarterbacks in the Big 12.
Up there, but that's all right. We'll go back to it. You were talking about the end of the year, TCU and Baylor. Obviously, quarterback play is going to be good there. They've got good receiver cores. Finish what you were saying.
You cut off there, but yes, I was mentioning the TCU and Baylor games are just big at the end of the year. Good quarterback and receiving talent on TCU Baylor. Games against Texas opponents just feel bigger in this new Big 12, and I think that Houston's like the only team that really feels like they've geographically benefited from conference realignment, getting to play more of these Texas schools rather than going across the country to Temple and Navy. So I think those will be two big games to finish the season. Houston can get those wins. That would be huge springboard to the program into a bowl season.
Okay, let's go with my prediction. I have Houston going 7-5. So I'd have them starting out with a win over Colorado and Oregon State. I have a 4-0 start going in. I do have them losing to Texas Tech. I've got Texas Tech doing pretty good this year. Now, Oklahoma State, I think that's a team that they can beat, to tell you the truth. So you could flip that one there. Tell me where you think in ASU, you said you want to be the new ASU at Houston. That could obviously be something there. Tell me where you see a chance to reverse it, whether it's a win to a loss or a loss to a win. What are you seeing on this schedule, and how far off am I?
The Big 12, I think almost every game has that so much parity.
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma State is not a team that I'm high on, but until last year, they hadn't had a losing record under Gundy in nearly 20 years. Oklahoma State's depth chart may not stick out right now in the fall, but you never know with what a Mike Gundy team can do. But I would think that's one that I would see Houston as a very winnable game for at the moment. Also, I mean, West Virginia, I mean, that could go both ways. It almost did the last time West Virginia played in Houston. That was decided on a Hail Mary. We'll see how the Mountaineers are. And then the UCF game, that one game's at UCF, but also it's a space game for UCF. And UCF plays like 2019 LSU every time they have one of those space games every year. They always beat their opponent. Like, look at the history of it. So, just 2 years ago, they played Oklahoma State, who was making the Big 12 title game. UCF won 45-3, and Oklahoma State was playing for a Big 12 title a couple weeks later.
I remember that.
Yeah, last year they played Arizona. UCF always dominates that space game, so I think that'll be an interesting one there. And then Arizona still has Noah Fafita. They don't have Tetero and McMillan anymore, but I think they have some good safety pieces in that room too. That could be an interesting one coming to Houston, because last year Arizona won that game in Tucson. So I think so many of these games you can flip either way. No one saw Houston beating Kansas State or TCU last year, and I think that's what makes the Big 12 maybe the most fun conference to watch in college football.
I totally agree on that. Hey, listen, Steve, I appreciate you getting on here. Sorry, guys, we had a little technical difficulty there. It went through good enough. I'm not going to probably edit that out. That's what technology does, unfortunately. But, man, great insight again from Steve. Go watch that Rice one if you haven't seen it yet. If you're a fan of Houston sports, he can fill you in on Rice and get out there and watch some games there. Steve, get well, dude. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to do, my show is going to be alone every Monday, doing my show, counting down the weekend and whatever happened going forward. But I tell you, there'll be games this year where midweek we may grab Steve Helwick and say, hey, jump on here. This is the big week. Let's preview the game. What do you think's going to happen and all of that? And this time you won't be hopefully having laid up in bed. You'll be walking around again and on some crutches, and we'll do some better stuff.
Yeah, the goal is to be at that Houston opener on Thursday night on week 1. So hopefully things will get better by then.
Guys, that's another one in the can. Thanks to Steve Helwick. I'm John Moore. Until next time or the next show, guys, we will see you on the gridiron.